Story, Princess Kaguya. Once upon a time, an old bamboo cutter and his wife lived in poverty. One day, the old man found a glowing stalk of bamboo. When he cut it open, inside was a tiny, radiant girl. The couple rejoiced and raised her as their own daughter. They named her Kaguya, meaning radiant light. As days passed, Kaguya grew into a young woman of unmatched beauty. Her long black hair shimmered, and her skin glowed like moonlight. Word of her beauty spread across the land. Soon, lords and nobles came to seek her hand in marriage. But Kaguya wished to wed no one. She set impossible tasks for her suitors, treasures that could never truly be found, such as Buddha's sacred bowl or a jeweled branch from a mythical tree. All who tried failed. Some lied and were exposed, while others perished on their quests. Even the great emperor himself fell for her beauty, inviting her to live in his palace. But with tears, Kaguya declined. One night, she revealed the truth to her foster parents. "I am not of this world. I come from the moon. It is time for me to return." When the full moon rose, a celestial chariot descended. Angelic beings in white robes came to take her away. Her parents wept, begging her to stay. But when Kaguya donned the robe of heaven, her earthly memories began to fade. She looked one last time at the parents who loved her. Then she ascended into the sky, returning to her home on the moon. And ever since, when people gaze upon the moon, they remember the sorrowful beauty of Princess Kaguya. Moral of the story. This story teaches us that all things are fleeting, and even love and beauty must part one day. Story, Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time, there lived a brother and sister named Hansel and Gretel. They lived with their father and stepmother in a poor little cottage. Life was so hard they barely had food to eat. One night, the stepmother said, "We cannot feed them anymore. Take the children deep into the forest and leave them there." The father was heartbroken but gave in to her demand. Hansel overheard and collected white pebbles, keeping them in his pocket. The next morning, as their father led them into the woods, Hansel dropped the pebbles along the path. When they were left behind, Hansel and Gretel followed the shining stones back home. The stepmother grew furious. Soon after, she forced the father to abandon them again. This time, Hansel had only breadcrumbs to scatter. But the birds ate every crumb. The children could not find their way back and wandered deeper into the forest. After hours of walking, they came upon a strange cottage made of bread, sugar, and candy. Hungry, they began to eat it. The door creaked open, and an old witch appeared. She spoke kindly, inviting them in. But in truth, she was evil and ate children. She locked Hansel in a cage to fatten him up, while Gretel was forced to work. Each day, the witch checked Hansel by touching his finger. But Hansel held out a small bone instead, tricking her into thinking he was still thin. At last, the witch grew impatient. "Today I shall eat your brother," she told Gretel. She ordered her to heat the oven. Pretending not to know how, Gretel asked the witch to show her. As the witch bent forward, Gretel pushed her inside and slammed the door. The witch was gone forever. Gretel freed Hansel, and together they found treasures hidden in the house. They returned home to their loving father. The wicked stepmother had died, and the family lived happily ever after. Moral of the story. This story teaches us that wit and courage can overcome even the darkest evil. Story, The Monkey and the Crocodile. Once upon a time, a monkey lived in a great mango tree by the river. The tree bore sweet fruit all year, and the monkey lived happily, eating and resting in peace. One day, a crocodile swam by, weary and hungry. The kind monkey tossed him some mangoes. The crocodile ate gratefully, and soon they became friends. Each day, the crocodile visited, and the monkey shared his fruit. But the crocodile's wife grew greedy. After tasting the mangoes, she thought, if the fruit is so sweet, the heart of the monkey who eats them must be sweeter still. She demanded, "Bring me the monkey's heart to eat." The crocodile was troubled, torn between love for his wife and loyalty to his friend. At last, he gave in. The next day, he invited the monkey to ride on his back, saying he would take him to his home across the river. As they swam, the crocodile confessed, "My friend, I am sorry. My wife wishes to eat your heart." The monkey was shocked, but being clever, he replied, "Oh, I left my heart in the mango tree where we always meet. Take me back, and I will fetch it." The crocodile believed him and returned to the shore. At once, the monkey leapt into the tree and laughed. "Foolish one. My heart is always with me. You cannot trick me so easily." Ashamed, the crocodile bowed his head. From then on, he never tried to harm the monkey again. Moral of the story. This story teaches us that wit and cleverness can save us from danger. Story: The Tale of the Golden Goby. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Yuang, who lived with her cruel stepmother after her real mother passed away. Her stepmother made her work endlessly with no rest. The only comfort Yuang had was a little goby fish in the pond. This was no ordinary fish. It was the spirit of her late mother, reborn to watch over her. Whenever Yuang sat by the pond and cried, the golden goby would appear, as if to comfort her. But the stepmother grew suspicious. One day, she spied on Yuang and discovered her secret. Jealous, she ordered Yuang to catch the fish for dinner. Heartbroken, Yuang had no choice but to obey. Before dying, the goby whispered, "Keep my bones in a pot at the corner of the room. Whenever you are in need, they will help you." Yuang did as told. Whenever she suffered, the bones would turn into fine clothes or delicious food, easing her hardships. Later, the king held a grand festival, inviting maidens to attend. With the goby's help, Yuang dressed in splendor and went to the festival. The king saw her beauty and kindness and chose her as his queen. Meanwhile, the wicked stepmother and her daughters lived in shame for the rest of their days. Moral of the story. This story teaches us that goodness and patience, even through hardship, will eventually be rewarded. Story: Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a sweet little girl who always wore a red hood made by her grandmother. Everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother packed a basket of bread and honey. "Take this to your grandmother in the forest," she said. "Do not stray from the path, and beware of strangers." The girl promised and set out. The forest was bright with birdsong and sunlight streaming through the trees. She became distracted by the beauty around her. Soon, a wolf appeared. "Where are you going, little one?" he asked kindly. "To my grandmother's house deep in the forest," she answered innocently. The wolf smiled slyly. "Why not pick some flowers for her? She will be delighted." The girl agreed, wandering off the path. Meanwhile, the wolf rushed ahead to the grandmother's cottage. He knocked and spoke in a high voice, "Grandmother, it's me, I've brought you food." When the grandmother opened the door, the wolf leapt and swallowed her whole. He put on her clothes and lay in bed. Soon, Little Red Riding Hood arrived. She noticed her grandmother looked strange. "Grandmother, what big eyes you have. All the better to see you with, my dear. And what big hands you have. All the better to hold you with. But grandmother, what big teeth you have. All the better to eat you with," the wolf roared. He jumped from the bed to grab her. The girl screamed loudly. Just then, a passing huntsman heard her cries. He burst in, axe in hand, and chased the wolf away. The grandmother was rescued from the wolf's belly, alive but shaken. Little Red Riding Hood embraced her with tears of joy. From that day on, she promised to obey her mother and never speak to strangers again. Moral of the story. This story teaches us that listening to wise advice and being cautious of strangers are always important. Story: The Crow and the Pitcher. Once upon a time, in the middle of a scorching summer, the earth was cracked, the trees were withered, and animals wandered in search of water. A thirsty crow flew for days. Across forests, over villages, but nowhere could it find water. Its feathers drooped, its beak grew dry, and hope began to fade. At last, it spotted an old pitcher by a small cottage. The crow rushed to it, peering inside with desperate joy. But the water was low at the very bottom, far beyond the reach of its beak. The crow tried to tilt the pitcher, but it was too heavy. It pushed with its wings, but it would not move. The crow sat, weary and close to giving up. Then it noticed small pebbles scattered nearby. A spark of an idea lit in its mind. It picked up a pebble and dropped it into the pitcher. Plink, plink, each stone sank, raising the water level little by little. The crow's heart lifted with every sound. More stones, more hope. At last, after many trips, the water rose high enough. The crow dipped its beak and drank deeply. Strength returned, and joy filled its heart. It looked at the pitcher and thought, it was not strength that saved me, but wisdom. Then, with renewed wings, the crow soared into the bright sky, leaving behind a lesson for all. Moral of the story. This story teaches us that wisdom and patience can solve problems that strength alone cannot. Story, Rapunzel. Once upon a time, a poor couple lived by the wall of a great garden owned by a wicked witch. At last, the wife became pregnant. She longed to eat a plant called Rapunzel that grew only in the witch's garden. The husband climbed over the wall to steal some. But the witch caught him and said, "I will spare you only if you give me your child when it is born." When the baby girl was born, the witch took her and named her Rapunzel. She grew up with long golden hair, as radiant as sunlight. The witch locked Rapunzel in a tall tower with no door. Whenever she wished to enter, she called, "Rapunzel, let down your hair," and Rapunzel lowered her golden locks for the witch to climb. One day, a prince heard Rapunzel singing from the tower. He fell in love with her voice and discovered the secret call. He, too, cried out, "Rapunzel, let down your hair." Thus he climbed up and met her. They spoke each day and fell in love. But the witch discovered their secret. She cut off Rapunzel's hair and banished her to the desert. When the prince came, the witch tricked him and cast him from the tower. He fell and was blinded. Years later, the blind prince wandered the desert. By fate, he heard Rapunzel's voice again. When they embraced, her tears fell upon his eyes and his sight was miraculously restored. The prince led Rapunzel home to his kingdom. They married and lived happily ever after. Moral of the story. This story teaches us that love and hope can overcome any hardship.